Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve? Or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.
Going, what if I am, I want to report, I want to be able to say my thing if I'm there. I don't want a reporter tell me that I'm allowed to be there or not when I know I'm allowed. And the second thing is, I wonder how much that situation is diverting from the real case, the other, the environmental damage aspect of the explosion. Because now you have two things: the environmental explosion and the imperfect or lack of regulations and proprietary secrecy for the chemicals and all these other kind of things. And then you have the this issue of this arrest, which is horrific. So I just wanted to make those two comments.
Outrageous. And I love that you're blue. Did you come in on a UFO or are you
that was me? Yes.
Are you actually
You're along.
And who has seen Big Fat Liar? Because he turns, nobody. Okay, it's not that great a movie. Tatanka, you had your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just want to bring up two things that we can discuss in the future because we don't have time now. The first is this link and how the large corporations are organizing. And this part, as I mentioned, was uncovered by the Romero team, that the government of Switzerland set up a special nonprofit for Exxon where they can launder everything. What they used to do in marketing with creating phony science and climate denial will be part of nonprofit work now, for instance, trillions. And at the same time, setting up a private bank for Exxon in Switzerland that supposedly nobody can get to, okay? We need to discuss that because this is something I heard nearly 50 years ago from a consultant at Stanford Research Institute talking about 2020 to 2030. He was a consultant with Royal Dutch Shell, and he told me about the information that Exxon and Shell had done on the climate, and that at 2020 to 2030, it was going to be the solar century that we want, and wind and all kinds of sustainable energy. But the key thing was Big Oil was determined to own the whole thing. And part of that was to set up wonderful sounding foundations, nonprofit foundations for all the social issues so that we think we're buying into our freedom when we're buying into our slavery, the corporatocracy, absolute fascism. So that's one topic. The other thing is, many of you probably already know that Danny Sheehan was asked by Luis Elizondo, who had worked for a couple decades in the Pentagon, and he was responsible for reporting the UF information into the Defense Department. For doing his job, he was fired, so he found Danny. Danny has had 2, I believe, perhaps 3 meetings with the Secretary General of the Pentagon. And as I mentioned earlier, he was talking a year ago last summer, saying it's too dangerous. UFOs swarm Moscow and Beijing and DC whenever the nuclear danger to planet Earth is very high, or the times that the climate issue. This is just what they do, and they have been, as military people have reported, there are times when they have disabled the nukes on carriers and things like that, basically because our destroying ourselves is not just a threat to us, it's a threat to other civilizations. So anyway, it would be fun sometime when Danny can talk about it. I know he just came out of a big conference this weekend on it, to talk about that issue, because he said right now people are going to be playing the blame game between the nation states when it has nothing to do with that. And I do believe just what I've been reading about these balloons, and well, we don't know, and they're just balloons, and it just reminds me of the original game that they played back in the 50s. The other thing is that every single U.S. president since Truman has been apprised of what goes on in Area 54. They know about it, but it's beyond their pay grade. Nobody can talk about it. We're talking about Obama and Trump all the way back. And it was in the era of Eisenhower that actually the corporations took over the black box money of the government to run the corporate money. And the issue, as Danny has been the attorney for Dr. Stephen Greer, and if you haven't seen the 1999 or 2000, it's almost 4 hours. It's still on YouTube as of, anyway, a few months ago when I looked. The issue, Washington Press Corps event, where they had all these scientists, nuclear people, one moon astronaut, corporate people, talking about the issue of disclosure. Greer's point is it's our tax dollars that we've had free energy. They've re-engineered the craft. We've known about this. They've known about this. The government inside has known about this since the 50s. We haven't even needed the oil wars. Okay, there is energy that is accessible, and it's our energy. That's what that suit is about. Anyway, Danny was arguing that we all know in this room, and this was military generals along with the attorneys, all of us in this room know the reality of this, and it's just too dangerous not to be open about it now, because different governments are going to play the blame game on what isn't even government activity against each other. And here it is being played out, like almost a year and a half after he warned about it. So that would be an interesting discussion to have. And then
let's do that.
I have to go to RCNB.
Well, here, before you go, I have a question.
Yeah, and I do too, after Harvey.
Okay, when the flying saucers come down and they shut down the atomic reactors, do the saucers have no nukes bumper stickers on them? Because we should market a bumper sticker going out of space. What do you think?
There's a whole, the whole issue about whether I'm of the belief that people from other places other than Earth have a variety. I think there are good guys and bad guys. I think there are civilizations that really have our interests in heart and those that don't. And there's always been the issue of the ones that have our interests in heart, that nobody's going to save us. They don't ever come, free will of us, but there have been times that the military has documented. I mean, I love this interview because the one woman on the panel talked about being consulted with, what's his name? The Nazi that came over to run our space program.
Wernher von Braun.
Yeah, Wernher von Braun, and kind of adopted her. And he basically said, the enemy game, that's the same game we did in Nazi Germany. That's going to lose its effectiveness after a while. And he eventually said our government is now preparing for phony space invasion scenarios because we have re-engineered these. I used to live in Ben Lomond until the fires 2.5 years ago. People up there, myself included, have seen ships come out of the Lockheed facility there. They're not UFOs. They're US. They can't do everything a UFO can do, but they can fly at great speeds, and they don't have sound, and they're utilizing the energy and the environment, kind of a Tesla thing. So it's real, and it's among us, and we just need to have a discussion about it.
I think it's a great discussion, and I'm looking forward to it. Myla?
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I muted when my phone was ringing. I apologize. Tatanka, I fully appreciate that you and Danny and Sarah have really understand how the existential threat that we face with the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. And yet I feel kind of like a broken record, or someone that I'm just not getting through about that existential threat. When I just have to say this, when I see Ben come on from this new Let's Green, Romero's Let's Green California initiative, and pinpoint 3 programs that say nothing whatsoever about shutting Diablo.
Okay, let me just say I have to go, but
okay,
Andy, Sarah, they both worked so heavily with Jackson Brown and everybody. They are totally
I know.
aghast. It's what's going on. Okay. There's no issue that they aren't opposed to nuclear.
And
I know that, and yet they somehow leave nuclear out of the equation with.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, let Tatanka and then Wendy. Tatanka, do you want to respond?
I don't know how you get that they leave nuclear out, just because everybody's not talking about nuclear at the same time, or what?
No, Ben came on and he said, these are the 3 issues that we're focusing on right now.
Okay, let me talk. Romero has several programs. Romero has Lakota People's Law Project. Romero has Let's Green California. The narrow dimension of that Dolores Huerta Foundation and others are working on are getting California to carbon zero by the year 2030, and beyond that to complete restoration, that is pre-industrial levels of toxicity in the air. That's one part, okay? Then there's another part, which is the New Paradigm Institute, which is talking about integrating all these things. And then there's a 501c4 that they've reactivated, which is the old Christic Institute, which is going to be lobbying to create a lot of things, okay? In this, definitely nuclear is involved. Definitely. But in the action that's being taken in the California legislature, the first one was SB 1230 to get electric cars and to get it at the point of purchase so that people can afford. The second thing was we found out that the legislature was not interested at all, or the Energy Commission or anyone talking about the issue in poor areas of access to infrastructure to charge. So Ben and then have confirmed, and everybody in the legislature is really excited that there's going to be a utility card where poor people can actually get their vehicles charged as everything rolls out. So that's, and then they're also talking about in the next year or two, regenerative agriculture, state banking, a whole bunch of things, okay? Whether or not we can have a legislative issue that could be brought to Romero that would involve nuclear, I welcome it. If you have it,
it's before the state legislature now, Tatanka.
Yeah, I know, and we're all working on it. You're working on it, thank God. You know, we all have several things.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll resume this.
I'm sorry, I'm such a pest.
I want to say that this also came out. This is you know, someday we can maybe get George on here, a lifelong Quaker. This is an amazing book, and he just came out with his biography. This is something that's also going on this evening.
I've met George Lakey. I'll be glad to have him on in the next week or two. I mean, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. If you want to bring on.
I'll talk to him and see if that's possible.
Yeah, it'd be great. Myla, thanks for your question on that. We'll resume this discussion when.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I've got to go, but.
No. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, and if everybody can, there's a concert tonight at the Resource Center for Nonviolence that I'm attending with David Rovics, and so I need to be there for that.
All right, man.
Okay, take care.
Talk to you later.
Playing?
Wendy, and then Mary, and then Justin. Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank
We have 23 people on the call. So
Awesome.
Steve, thank you for engineering this transition. Very well done. I'm really glad, and even gave me time in between to go out and take a leak. So really worked well. Okay, Wendy, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, and cheers to that. Thanks for the engineer. Yeah, just to what Mila's saying, like I totally see the point, like seeing at it from just that angle. But yeah, I was just gonna say, like Tatanka said, like they work on like so many different things, and I thought that specific part of the website was also good because the way he has it laid out, as far as like clicking on it, learning more about the issue, and then it directs you straight to your representative with the template. Like it was just so great for the grassroots organizing that Harvey's doing. So that specific arm and tentacle of what they're working on, I thought was relevant here. But they do have like so many other things. Like Sarah Nelson has a movie coming out about the work that she did years ago with the Karen Silkwood case, and so I know that that draws a lot of lines to the nuclear really being for weapons and how dangerous it really is. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know. Sorry, my tooth really hurts, guys. I'm a little.
Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. Just Mark Stansberry for clarification. There are bushes behind my house. Mary Butler, and then Justin LeBlanc. And Ron, I want to talk to you about the latest solar stuff. So we'll go through the questions and then talk about that. Mary, go ahead. Mary Stonewall.
Yeah, first, pack that tooth over and over again with baking soda, and I swear that pain will be gone in an hour if you do it every like 2 to 3 minutes. Pack more baking soda in it.
Okay.
All pain will be gone in an hour.
Okay.
I want to point out that I keep talking about building code reform, and then we have Turkey. We have all these things going down. My building code reform, I told you I wrote the base code that all codes must follow. I don't care what you're building, whatever you're creating or mining or extracting or logging. It goes upon this one base code, and basically I call it the inherent constitutional building code because I based it off the U.S. Constitution and Declaration of Independence. But in reality, it could be a galactic building code because of the fact that it states that if anything that is extracted, constructed, any byproducts thereof, if they pose a threat to life on Earth or our existence within the known galaxy, it's automatically outlawed. Because I felt a long time ago that what we're doing here is jeopardizing the rest of the solar system.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that. Justin, and then we'll go to Ron Leonard. Justin LeBlanc.
Hello. I actually grew up near a Superfund site, about a half an hour's drive, actually maybe a little less, and know one of the rocket engineers who worked there. So this is a company called Aerojet, and they actually left the area nominally because neighbors got too close and started putting in noise ordinances. No, it's really because of all the toxic pollution. So Mila has a point about the existentialism of Diablo nuclear plant. And in particular, the thing about the Turkey earthquakes, yeah, that is actually a huge deal. It's a time that we really should be addressing it, especially because it is in front of the legislature. Now, what's the alternative to nuclear? Because we can scare people to death, but we actually have to provide them something else to replace it with. And part of that is just energy efficiency. So one of the things that's happening right now is, Walmart even is buying electric delivery vehicles because that's more efficient than gas-powered ones. And so we can actually encourage local governments and state governments to start boosting all of that by doing things like taxing vehicles that aren't full on the deliveries, right? And so an example of that would actually be people who are buying luxury goods as opposed to, say, food or medical goods, they would pay a shipping surcharge. So there's lots of ways to actually get people to reduce their dependence on all fuels, not just fossil fuels or nuclear fuels. And by the way, for what it's worth on all of that, Bloomberg and Sierra Club are kind of problematic there because Bloomberg has actually started saying, well, yeah, small nuclear reactors are just a little bit cheaper than the conventional ones. So it's really not worth it to even bother there. Let's just copy the rest of the world and go full on more nuclear plants. We don't want that, right? So we actually want people to be much more in harmony with nature, much more efficient with their activities. That's why it's really important to take our wins where we can get them. And ironically, big corporation like Walmart is actually a good platform for that if we set the policies right. But we have to start advocating local control.
Yeah, and the big fight right now is the Postal Service. Why they haven't gotten rid of this jerk who's the head of the Postal Service, I don't know. DeJoy, this guy's name, and he's jumped in and tried to stop the Postal Service from going to electric vehicles, but now apparently they're backtracking and they may do it. We'll see.
A leader who's on the forefront of that is Senator Tammy Baldwin, and they are actually working. One of the partners is UC Santa Barbara. There's a lady named Charmaine Chau, Chau, I think it is. I'll have to get the spelling and put the information here in the chat. But UCSB Global Studies is a place to watch.
Well, the New York Times, Ron, I'm gonna let Myra has a hand, then we'll go to you. The New York Times ran a piece in the last couple of days, which what I found shocking, I guess that's a bad pun, saying that the electric cars are now cost equivalent on the purchase end with gas cars. I mean, this is way ahead of schedule. But the basic idea is you can now buy an electric car for what it costs to buy the equivalent gas car. It's amazing. Myra, you want to jump in real quick and then we'll go to Ron Leonard?
I actually like to go to Ron Leonard first. And then what I'd really like to talk about is that the California legislature included an off-ramp to extending the license of Diablo. And there are several agencies right now in the state of California that actually have the power to stop the relicensing. So after Ron Leonard, I'd like to kind of go over what the off-ramp looks like and what we can do in order to shut Diablo.
I used to hitchhike at on-ramps, so off-ramps are good too. Okay, Ron Leonard, this is a big deal. If the New York Times is saying that gas and electric cars are now equivalent price to buy, that's pretty amazing.
Well, it's an unusual situation because no one really expected this to happen, especially happen this year. But the IRA, the Infrastructure Restructuring Act that the federal government passed, put in this little thing called a rebate for electric vehicles. So if you happen to have the idea of purchasing an electric car, you could get $7,500 for a new car as a credit on that car. And if you buy a used electric car, you can get $4,000 credit for that car. So the second unusual thing that occurred is Tesla's Model Y, which is the most popular car that they have been selling recently, did not really qualify for that $7,500 credit because it was a car and was a little bit above $55,000 that they limit the price for. If it's a car, you can't have over $55,000. If it's a truck, it can't be more than $80,000. Well, Tesla decreased the cost of the Model Y by about 30%. So they had a workaround. If you bought a Model Y with 3 rows of seats, which it made it an SUV, which is a truck, you still got the tax credit, no more. You get a tax credit on any Model Y you got because they decreased the price of the car. So this really throws big numbers at people buying cars. And if you don't believe that, you can take a look at the amount of orders Tesla got after reducing the price of the cars. They immediately went from, not too many people buying to, I can't make enough. So they sold Tesla 1.3 million cars last year. This year, they are capable of producing and likely to produce over 2 million cars. That's a big jump.
That's amazing. I read a letter to the editor somewhere. Someone, we're not on the air. Oh, we are on the air. We're on. Never mind. Someone was really angry because they had bought a Tesla like a month ago, and then Tesla dropped the price on them, and it was like 20 grand. I mean, it's a very big price drop. So this is a big deal. And the other thing we're all waiting for, and Ron, you're the guy most on top, when is the end of the use of lithium in batteries, and when is the beginning of other substances like sodium?
Let's talk about numbers. So lithium is basically 33rd on the most abundant element list in nature. And basically what happens is that they mine about 89 million tons worldwide, and about the reserves stand about 2 million tons of lithium. So lithium is an issue, but it's not an issue to reduce the amount of batteries that we can have. It's just, something you have to do when you build a battery, because lithium batteries frankly work. They recharge a lot of times. They have a fairly good energy density. And again, Tesla has gotten the price of lithium batteries below the $100 magic number, so that it just works. But what happens if you want to go beyond lithium? If you want to do large scale storage, if you want to do big stuff and store energy for more than 6 hours on a utility grid, you got to have another technology, because lithium ain't going to cut the grade. And you have different choices there. So there are new solid state batteries. One company's manufacturing them, which is a lithium battery, but doesn't have to be a lithium battery. There are flow batteries that use other things that are just moving pumped chemicals. Some of them based on iron, some of them are based on sodium. They work. The only problem is they weigh more and are physically bigger, but it's fine for the application. So as we go forward, we will be seeing, one company has figured it out, they say, how to make a sodium battery, flow battery, that's energy dense and can be put into cars. It's all good. It all works. We don't have to have a worry here. We can buy a car today that goes 400 miles on a battery. It's here. No waiting.
Fantastic. Myla, did you want to say something? And then the next person, Myla?
Yes, I definitely do.
Go ahead.
I want to talk about the leverage and the power that the state of California actually has with respect to shutting down Diablo.
Okay.
The federal regulators, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, issues the license for PG&E to run the nuclear power plant. But the state of California has a role as well. The land where the nuclear power plant is sited is leased from the state of California. It's on California coastal land. And the California Land Commission issues the lease to PG&E in order to operate. The Water Control Board has oversight over, it has been given responsibility by the federal government to enforce the Clean Water Act, which prohibits the superheated water from being discharged directly into the ocean. The California Coastal Commission also has a role, and I need to learn more about exactly what that is. But you may recall, Harvey, that Diablo started operations kind of late, and the lease that they had to lease that California coastal land actually expired a few years ago, and so the state of California Land Commission was faced with extending that lease. Now, after Diablo opened, the state of California passed a really great act, the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. And CEQA basically says that if you're going to make any kind of major decision, if state agencies or municipal agencies are to make any kind of a decision that would have an environmental impact, that they have to study that environmental impact and issue a report about it. And as I said, CEQA was passed after Diablo started operation, but before the extension of the license that occurred a few years ago. Now, Gavin Newsom, of all people, was the chair of the California Coastal Commission. The California Land Commission. At the time that they were deciding whether or not to enforce CEQA, to follow the law that would have required the state of California to take a look at the environmental impact of extending the lease and allowing PG&E to operate that nuclear power plant on California coastal land, and they decided that it was not so important, and much to our chagrin. And you may recall, Harvey, I know that you testified, a lot of people went to Sacramento and they spoke brilliantly, but there was also that other side, the people who say, well, the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow, and all of the mantras that we hear repeated ad nauseum over decades that justify these horrendous nuclear power plants. At the end of the day, Betty Yee and Gavin Newsom said, well, we've heard both sides and now we're convinced that it's okay to extend the lease without looking at the environmental impact. But they are going to be faced with that decision once again. The California Land Commission is going to have to extend that lease again. And so they have the power once again to require an environmental impact review prior to extending that lease. And that's one of the things, that's one of the power points, one of the pressure points that we have.
Great.
I asked during that listening session the other day whether they would actually be posting the video of the session, because I didn't get all of the information and I really want to review it so that we can let people know how to contact the various agencies and what their responsibilities are. The other responsibility that I just want to go over quickly is that about once through cooling. The California Water Board, and they, the legislature oversees. Henry Stern is the chair of a committee that has oversight over. Oh, Steve, did you have something to say? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not following.
I'm out. I'm leaving.
Oh,
You guys have a good one. Wendy's taking over the
Steve,
helm.
thank you very much, bro.
okay.
Well,
Bye.
Thank you.
You did the impossible here.
Bye.
We'll talk.
Thank you so much.
So Wendy and Myra are the principal hosts.
I'll be quick. I'll just wrap it up real quick if that's okay.
Go ahead, yes.
So the federal law prohibits the superheated water from being discharged, and basically PG&E has gotten an exemption from abiding by that law. They would have had to have built cooling towers to cool that water prior to pushing it back or discharging it into the Pacific Ocean. So now, once again, the California water boards are going to have the power to insist that if PG&E wants to continue operation of that plant, that they're going to have to build those very expensive water towers. Now, you and I know, unfortunately,
Not gonna happen.
that the state has historically rolled over at every opportunity, and so has the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So
Okay.
keep hope alive, but at least.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of loopholes. You're right. I do have a pop quiz for you, though. Guess what year and guess who signed the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA?
Oh, who?
Ronald Reagan.
Wow.
It was in 1970. Ronald Reagan, I guess he was on acid at the time. They put it in front of him, and Ronald Reagan signed the California Environmental Quality Act.
Well, thank you for that.
Go.
I should have known
Justin, thank you, Myla. And you and Wendy are now the hosts. So we'll go a few minutes. This was a very successful trade-off. We have 18 people on the call, and so this is, from now on, this is the link we'll be using. Okay?
Well, we have two Robin Harpers, so that's
you can never have too many Robin Harpers. So go ahead, Justin, please.
I mean, this is basically our working group, right? All the 18 most committed people.
Here we are.
So actually, I wanted to add in about Diablo and Reagan. So the CEQA, Reagan was in the time of all of that, along with Nixon, right? Creating the Environmental Protection Act.
Right.
And so the Republicans knew that they were a minority party. They knew they weren't going to get a lot of popular votes unless they implemented a lot of more popular programs. And so they started doing so with a little bit of a trade-off on the other side. And that was, well, we'll have environmental quality in America, but we'll pass off a lot of our production to countries like China, where they won't have the environmental protections. They won't have the labor protections. The irony of Reagan is that he actually was a union guy before he became a politician and was bought out. And so we're seeing a lot of the essentially shake my hand with one hand, pick my pocket with the other over these past 50 years. And so to provide a little bit more of the reason that this is such a big deal. So I mentioned earlier that I was born near Aerojet and the Superfund site there. Well, there's also a company that was right next door to them called Intel.
Oh my God.
And that before it was Intel, it was Fairchild Semiconductor. Before it was the Pentium, it was the 586 computer processor. So basically they rebranded to get out of all of their liabilities and also rebranded to control a lot of the legal matters around essentially proprietary information. And that's a big deal right now because Intel and its industry just got paid $100 billion worth of subsidies from the federal government. And then they turned around and took that money and cut wages across the board, cut 401ks across the board, and basically are screwing over all of their employees. Oh, by the way, yes, they've been doing all the stock buyback activities that everybody's been complaining about too. So this is all, as you know, Tatanka said, corporate collusion. And the reason it's gotten away with over the past 50 years especially is because we have lost, in many ways, a lot of the power of the labor movements. This is
Definitely
a
true.
core issue that needs to be solved pretty much before any other power issue can be solved. And I'm hoping that this situation with Intel will wake up the tech industry to realize that they can't just ride high on the hog. They actually need to look out for their interests of their fellow workers, not just their personal one now.
Right. You know, one thing, Henry Ford was a terrible bigot, but he instituted with the first mass auto production a pay of $5 a day, which that was off the charts at the time. And he explained that he wasn't going to sell any cars if people didn't have any money. But somewhere along the line, that has been done.
He also advocated for public roads. He also advocated for ethanol instead of diesel. There were many ways that he was super progressive in terms of his technology profile.
Yeah, and he wanted to build the cars out of soy. He wanted to build the cars out of soy. So then when you were done with your car, you could boil it down and do so.
So Justin, that was a great definition of a politician, which was from this guy, Mark Twain, who said they shake your hand with one paw and reach around with the other paw and pick your pocket. That was very appropriate. Does anybody happen to know on the denial of the reauthorization by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission recently for Diablo Canyon, whether that's going to hold true forward? And I assume because there is a new permit required, there would be a new Speedies permit required, which is a state law, and that filing for Speedies under adding more hot water to the Pacific Ocean can be legislated and be fought legally through the courts, which would kill the entire thing, I can guarantee.
Well, the problem is that the 1954 Atomic Energy Act basically makes the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, of what was then the AEC and now the NRC, a sovereign state. And so the civil courts in general have completely ceded everything to the NRC. And plus at Indian Point, their license expired and they operated without a license.
I remember.
No license, no insurance. I mean, you know, if they were a car, they'd be in jail. So, you know, that's the reality.
A ticket.
We'll go another 10 minutes. We got 18 people still with us. Mila, go ahead.
I was just gonna say what you say, that generally, unfortunately, the NRC has a track record of rolling over. And so you don't really need a license after all, it turns out. So
You also don't need a cooling system.
right. You don't need the cooling towers, and you don't need, it's just you don't need an environmental impact statement, and just look the other way and whistle past the graveyard and hope the big one doesn't hit and California isn't destroyed before it shuts down eventually.
Right.
They shut it down now.
Justin, do you have your hand again?
Oh, sorry, no, I didn't have any.
Oh, okay. Joan, did you want to say something?
Real quick, I am really interested in the issue of California and the grid. And the reason was how much energy is coming into the state of California from the Arizona nuke plant. I somewhere with Wyoming and the future of that Bill Gates and Anschutz and Warren Buffett, right, bringing up that nuclear power plant in Wyoming, but they're all looking at selling energy. And I wondered, I mean, I'm just still startled that Diablo, after all this time, they decided, oh, we made a mistake. We need to keep Diablo open. And there's this grid issue that people aren't talking about. I'm not you, but I mean, I don't see a lot of input on people saying, are you receiving any nuclear power? Because the co-ops in Colorado, oh my God, I didn't realize those co-ops here in Colorado are so pro-nuclear, and they are bringing, because I don't know enough about this grid and the different locations around the country, but they in Colorado are bringing in nuclear power as co-ops. Now, I didn't know if there's such a thing in California with co-ops bringing in and transferring electricity that way. So I'm just not an expert on the grid at all, but we started finding out that that's what was happening here. Co-ops, not the big ones like Xcel Energy. Of course, they have 2 big nukes in Minnesota, et cetera. But anyway, do you know much about the co-ops?
Either Ron or
I know quite a lot about the Palo Verde and the energy that's exported to Southern California.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about 10% of the energy that's consumed in Southern California, to the best of my knowledge. Go ahead, Harvey, I cut you off.
Well, the DWP, as Milo well knows, owns a piece of Palo Verde. We haven't heard from you, Robin. Robin Harper, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I logged in the first time and it didn't work.
Okay.
But I wanted to hear more about public transit.
Robin, what you do, honey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but turn the volume off on your other device so the stereo on it isn't coming through, because that's what your microphone is picking up, the other stereo.
Yeah, I was trying to get rid of the other device, but
okay. We're almost out. We'll go to 440 and then we'll cut it off.
It sounded better before. Robin, you actually sounded okay before you adjusted again, I thought.
All right. Well,
Wendy, can you drop his second connection? Because maybe that'll automatically get rid of the extra microphone.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know which one
he's
using right now. I don't want to.
Just unmute one, that's all.
I'm only seeing one
You
now.
should be able to do it from his video. So
yeah, your other one should be muted.
I think his other one dropped. Let's hear.
They're both muted now. Just unmute one of them.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah, there you go.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Cambridge, and they've done a lot for bicycles, and the public transit is pretty bad. And I'd like to just see a lot better public transit in this country, like in Europe, as opposed to more electric cars.
That's I'm with you on that. Absolutely. A lot of the mass transit is converting to electric. A lot of the buses are getting better. We are seeing some progress. So mass transit people don't talk much about anymore, but they should, absolutely. Okay.
Can I say
Myla,
something more
Jones
to-
part.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to Joan's question.
go ahead.
And
Where
that
did
is,
Joan-
Joan, as Harvey said, the Los Angeles DWP, the City of Los Angeles, and an association of Southern California municipalities do own an interest in the municipally held Arizona Palo Verde nuclear power plant, the New Mexico Public Energy Commission, which is also a muni or a state-owned PNM. In New Mexico is also a part owner, and I don't know if there are any owners from Colorado as well, but the Palo Verde nuclear power plant is the largest nuclear power plant in the state of in the country. It generates more electricity than any other power plant, and it exports, as you were asking about, it exports energy to New Mexico, to Southern California, possibly to Colorado. I'm not sure about that. And a lot of power is lost in transmission. And there's a lot more we can talk about, but time is short now. So let's continue the conversation. I could talk for an hour about Palo Verde. I've got a lot to say about it, but I'll put that off until another day.
And Palo Verde does evaporate, as Myla has said, a huge quantity of water, like 20,000 gallons a minute. Is that right?
27,000 gallons of water every minute of every day is evaporated by those three enormous the aggregate, and it's
Right.
It's treated municipal wastewater aggregated from all over the state of Arizona, and now with the water wars and the shortage of water coming through the Colorado River, it's going to be very challenging to continue to operate those three enormous reactors.
And the LA Times just ran, this just always blows my mind. The LA Times just ran a major series on water in the Southwest, and managed to do the entire series without ever mentioning Palo Verde. And I mean, come on. And they also always do features on earthquakes in the LA Times and never mention Diablo Canyon. It's mind-boggling to me, the denial here, but what can I tell you? Justin, go ahead.
So to follow up Joan's point, about the power agencies in this area, we don't usually do co-ops. Pretty often it's something else called community choice aggregators, and that's about 40% of customers in California. Those are essentially joint powers authorities by cities and counties to basically direct a public utility, but it's limited. Most of the time that actually only does the generation of the power, but not so much the distribution. That ends up following to the, I call them utilities of last resort, right? We have nobody better to do it, so we give it over to a monolithic corporation. And I'm in the process of, with other folks who have been on this call, and others may know, Robert Freeling, who is a disciple of Paul Fenn, as well as a guy named Kevin Bell, who was partly of the those in Washington fighting against nuclear power at the time for the sake of keeping the state out of bankruptcy. And so I'm working with them and others to lobby city councils and county supervisors to start taking more proactive approaches to their energy management, so that essentially we don't keep following to the rule of the biggest cash pile in trying to get our energy policy.
All right, you guys, we're at 4:36. Does anyone else that we made this transition successfully? We got 18 people still with us. I think we're good. Is anybody? Thank you for that, Justin and Myla, and we'll continue this in 2 weeks. So thank you all for sticking with us. Thanks for the transition. Anybody else have a last word they want to throw in?
Can I just one more thing? Oh, Robin, were you just about to speak? Let me.
Well, when I I took the link, it said it was only for February 27. And I don't know why that was it.
No, that's our next meeting.
Yeah, it was just a last minute thing where we sent it out without changing the date.
Okay,
So
so the
we will
next
be meeting again.
is February 27th.
Right, right. And that link will be good for that meeting. And just one more thing for Joan, you know, I just yesterday was watching a fabulous video with Amory Lovins where he talks about the grid and he talks about the distribution and how it won't take that much really to accommodate renewables and to eliminate fossil fuels and nuclear power from the grid.
And we got to cover the aqueducts. That's the first thing to do.
Indeed, and I have been bringing that up. It's so great. I've been on a few discussions where I do bring that up. So thank you for that, Harvey.
Oh, wasn't my idea, but thank you, Myla. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you. Wendy, did you want to?
Thank you, Harvey. Yeah, I guess I'll just mention the water privatization real quick, just to give a quick update on it. Just thinking about, particularly hearing you guys talking about the private and public of electricity and like what they're trying to do with drinking water everywhere, and just like letting everybody know that the vote passed 3-2 here this week, and the deciding vote was done by the vice mayor who had just had a special election and ran his whole campaign against it, against somebody else who almost won that was also against it. So obviously everyone was against it. 20 people spoke at the meeting, they were all against it. And it's just they bought us out. And I even sent something to the new commissioners, the manager, and the city attorney, just enumerating all the lies that were in the contract versus like what was told to the public, like specific direct lies, and calling out all the different things. Even the last environmental impact study that they did was from May of last year, and it was only good for 90 days. But everything, literally, like they held 2 town halls, and like literally all the questions that they were asked and the answers that they gave were completely contrary to what the contract actually said. And it's very endangering to the public. It's what I believe is an unconscionable contract, which in business law, that's like really non-binding. If it's done something that's in deceit and like nobody in their right mind would sign to it, then you know, it can't be held up. But they're moving forward on the $666 million theft. Yeah, the theft.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
There are 2 famous
Myla, did you have
French
another
companies
hand?
doing it.
Sorry, Ron?
I said there are 2 famous French companies doing this around the world. Last place in the United States, they did it in Puerto Rico, doubled the price of water. One company then got thrown out. They just substituted the other French company for the water control.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I'll just say really quick, I know everybody wants to go, but yeah, there's also a German company. This is an Israeli company, and the last bidder was caught in backroom deals with the lobbyists, or the commissioners and the lobbyists, and they had to change that contract. And we were told we got another company that was Poseidon, and we told we got IDE, and it turns out IDE owns Poseidon. And they're already bragging, saying, yeah, like it never changed. And the rates we're told are going to go up 140%. And what's not being told is all the hidden things in the contract. So it's going to go up like 2, 3, 5 times the amount that people already cannot afford to survive. And they're going to lose. So thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, everybody. Myla,
Last thing, since I'm of that ethnicity, they've mentioned French, Justin Leblanc. So we've talked about labor issues on this call before. The last thing I want to mention is that the French use their railroads during commute time to run sausage carts down the street and have conversations with their neighbors. The way to your heart is through your stomach. And
Wow.
yeah, so we actually have, you know, great organizing right there using public infrastructure. And America needs to do a lot more of that.
Well, they're not going to use those sausage carts. You're going to have to sub in tofu for the hippie constituency.
True.
And no pork.
Myla, you get the last word, Myla. Did you have your hand up here? Oh, I guess not. Hey, this was great, everybody. Fantastic. It's now 4:41 in California. It's really been a good transition. We'll see you all in 2 weeks, and let's hope to God that nothing really terrible happens between now and then. And if anybody knows anybody coming in on a UFO, we'll be glad to have them on the Zoom call.
Sorry
Take care,
about not
everybody.
lowering my virtual hand. And
Oh,
thank
okay.
you once again,
See
everybody.
you in 2 weeks, everybody. And this is the new Zoom.
Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve? Or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.